Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Sisters of Legacy broadcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We are going to run our intro and we will be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you again for joining us. So I'm going to introduce the ladies per usual. So of course we have the wonderful Shanetta.
Hey.
All right, and we have Tangela Terrell.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, and we have a guest tonight. We have Latoya Moseley.
Hello.
All right, yes. And she can hear us. And Latoya, so I'm going to tell you a fun fact. So you met Tangela at the party, but what you guys didn't realize was that y'all have the same last. Well, her maiden last name is Mosley. It's just spelled a little bit different. So look at that. You guys have something in common.
We're cousins already.
Yep.
All right. So tonight we are gonna start talking about, I just gotta make sure our other we are going to talk about the COVID vaccine. And I just want to say ahead of time, we are not doctors. None of us are in the medical field. We are mostly going to talk about just our personal opinions on it. And I'm going to constantly keep directing you guys to the CDC site so you can get some actual information from medical professionals. But we do have, which I found out tonight, two of our ladies. Our guest, Latoya, has had the vaccine, as well as Tangela. So they are going to talk to us about their experiences with it as well. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Katrina in. Hey, Trina.
Hey. I don't know.
You're fine. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the vaccine. And the ladies are going to share their personal experiences with it. We'll probably let you know possibly what our intentions may or may not be. Uh, so we're going to get into it and we're going to talk about it. All right. So, Toya, is it okay? Toya, we good? What I do?
We good, either one.
Okay. So when did you get the vaccine? How long have you had it?
I've been fully vaccinated since early February.
Oh, okay. You've had it for quite a while. So tell us what the experience was like.
I'm not gonna lie. So I'm in healthcare analytics, and so it was a little scary for me at first. Especially I have several friends who are doctors, and so I got to see through their lens, just what some of their concerns were, and then working in healthcare analytics, getting to see the counts and the stats myself. So I'll be honest with you. When I heard that Bell's palsy, temporary Bell's palsy, was one of the side effects, I canceled my appointment because I was just like, I'm not trying to have the droopy face. I was very much so, I wanted to be one of the later people to get the vaccine just because so much wasn't known about it. And that was my original stance when they were talking about it in 2020. However, my stance eventually changed once I started hearing more about the long-term side effects, as well as the risks of not catching it, or the long-term side effects of COVID,
Okay.
and the risk of catching COVID. And so that kind of made me change my mind within a week. And so I rescheduled. I got it. My first shot, I had a sore arm, like really sore arm to where it hurts to lift it, kind of spread into my shoulder. Took some ibuprofen. That lasted for maybe about 2 or 3 days. And then I was fine. For my second shot, I had a slightly sore arm for maybe a couple of hours, and that was it. I didn't have any of the other scary side effects that we've heard of. Was actually able to travel more comfortably to
Right.
see Samantha and her husband earlier last month, to celebrate them. And it gave me a sigh of relief to have it. So I would recommend it.
Okay, so you said, okay, so I guess I have to change my disclaimer because I did say none of us is in the healthcare field because I had no idea. So tell us, you said explain
So
what you,
So I'm in the healthcare analytics. So I work for
okay,
Humana, which is one of the big 5 health insurance companies, and I do analytics for them. And so I get to see all of the stats on people who have taken the vaccines. We get regular updates from the CDC as well as Johns Hopkins and others, just regarding the vaccines, because as a healthcare company, we administer it to our members. So by no means, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I just get to see or be privy to some analytics and information that the general public may not see, at least without doing a lot of internet searching and research for it. And so we get to see, the stats on, the number of people who have had serious side effects, the number of people hospitalized, any number of things, I get the exposure to through my job. And so that gave me greater confidence in getting the vaccine myself, again, as well as seeing how people are reacting who catch COVID. Again, it's a very small percentage of people who have the severe side effects, have to be on a respirator in a hospital, but there's no clear way to say who will not end up with that severe side effect. And so that kind of pushed me to get it more, because they literally have people of all ages, colors, health status, who end up on respirators. It was really, there was no rhyme or reason. You couldn't be like, oh, if I had a pre-existing condition, which many of us in the US have, I couldn't be like, oh, if you're over 50, then you're okay, because they have people under 50, they have people in their 20s that ended up on respirators. So it just wasn't a clear way to tell. So it made me more comfortable to get it. And then knowing that the technology or the way that they established the vaccine, that is something that they've been testing and studying for over 10 years now, 20 years, because they're trying to do cancer tests with it. So that made me more comfortable. I'm rambling on, so I apologize, but that made it more feasible for me, and it changed my mind, because I was definitely one of the people who was like, I'm gonna let some of these other people get it first, and then I'll see what the long-term side effects are. But again, like I said, having exposure to all of the stats and knowing how the general public was reacting to it made me more open to getting it myself.
And which shot did you get?
I got Pfizer.
Okay. And so, Tangela, tell us, what was your experience?
So I got my second shot. I did the Pfizer as well, April 30th. So I guess 2 weeks after that, I would, have been fully vaccinated since that time. So I'm Latoya, similar to you. At first, I was like, no, I'm not taking it. But I think that was my fear of the unknown speaking, and the more research I did on my own, the more comfortable I got with the idea. And I too kind of felt like, it seemed kind of rushed. But then again, I also had to ask myself, I'm pretty sure that, the CDC, they're testing in the medical field, they're testing things all the time that, I don't know about. They don't share with me, what they're doing on a daily basis. So they're probably testing stuff now that will come out later. um, I think the research um, was really key for me in wanting in answering some of those questions that I have, more so the long-term effects of the vaccine. And I think simply because COVID was new to us. I think the thought was, if it's new and the vaccine is new, then it hasn't had time to kind of go through cycles and see how it's affecting individuals. Um, when I got my first dose, I had soreness in my arm, and that was pretty much it. Second dose, it kind of hit me a little harder. I had this soreness in my arm. I had the vaccine on a Friday night, a Friday evening. That Sunday I started to feel like I had a cold. So I pretty much stayed in bed Sunday and Monday. But outside of that, I didn't have any nausea, any uh other side effects other than just kind of feeling like I had a cold, sniffing, the coughing and sneezing and just being very tired. Since then, I haven't had any adverse reaction. Um, I haven't turned into a zombie. Like my husband keeps saying, you won't turn into a zombie. Um, so I'm happy with my decision. But ultimately, as a believer, ultimately my trust is in God. So with COVID or the COVID vaccine, that's kind of my stance. I personally have witnessed COVID. My dad had COVID back in September and was hospitalized, had pneumonia in both lungs. And so I saw the impact that it had. And if I'm honest, I see that it impacts the lingering effects of it.
Right.
And I've spoken to other people who've had COVID, and they are just not the same. So that's kind of what prompted me to get it. Um, my own personal research, and I wanted to be safe. So
Okay, so you said your husband said you're gonna turn into a zombie. So does that mean he did not get the vaccine?
no, he is not.
So is that weird? Like, that you decided to do it and he didn't. Like, what is that dynamic like?
I think he's kind of where I was. Um, I think eventually he'll get it, but at the when I got mine, when I became ready to get it, he was just, kind of not on board. And I think some of the same reasons, um, thinking that 20 years down the line, we're going to see the infomercial saying, if you took the COVID vaccine in 2021, you may be eligible for, all that. So it hasn't caused too much disruption in the household. But we're still exercising the same precautions that we did when the pandemic first started. So thank God, it hasn't hit our home, and prayerfully it won't.
Right. Richard said, I had my first vaccine dose and shall be having my second dose in 2 weeks. And he said, mine is AstraZeneca, but I'm very comfortable with it. Just a little soreness in my arm. Second jab, 14 days. I have relatives who were doctors. I talked with them, and some side effects are, I guess, one in a million. No real side effects. Also, I don't want lockdowns to carry on. I want lockdowns to end. That is a good point. So, Trina, where do you stand on the vaccine?
First, let me say, I don't know what's going on with my camera. I don't know why I look this way, but here we are. I'm gonna carry on. Right now, I am on the fence. I am on the
Okay.
fence. I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's For me, it's just um our country's history, with so many things, just not being completely transparent about things that go on. Um, And so I'm just feeling like I don't know. I don't know if I trust it. I don't know. But on the other hand, um at, I guess in the beginning I was leaning toward just not getting it or just waiting it out as long as I could. But um what is prompting me to kind of reconsider that is that I have uh there was a friend of mine who passed away from COVID. Um he was maybe about 43, 44. And I guess this was different for me because he had he has a 4-year-old daughter and a 4-month old. And
Mhm.
he passed away maybe 2, 3 weeks ago. Um, and it really just hit home for me because it was like, to me, it just brought back a lot of things. Because when my husband passed away, my daughter was 4, my son was born like 10 days later after he passed away. So it was just like looking at the wife and just seeing what she's going through as far as now having to raise a small child and a baby by herself. And I'm just like, okay, I know what that is. And so I'm like, okay, my kids already lost their father. I don't want to put them in a position to not have me. So that's what's really got me now in a position to just like, okay, maybe I should, maybe I can just push past it. And my other considerations, of course, I love to travel. I want to be able to travel. Um, that's pretty much where I am. I'm still on the fence about the whole thing.
Okay. And Shanetta, what's your position?
So, for me, I have chosen not to at the current moment. I can't say that I'm on the fence because I really don't have any real consideration as far as me taking it in the moment. My son is going off to college in August, and the school that he's attending is actually requiring the COVID vaccine. So tomorrow is his first appointment for his first dose, and then in several weeks he'll go back for his second dose. So he'll be the first one in our household to be vaccinated. Um, it worried me, it stressed me, to the point where I did start doing some research and trying to answer my own questions, which did not help me. It made it worse in some aspects. So kind of going on the faith side of it, what my husband said to me in the midst of all of my researching and all of my thoughts and my wheels turning, he basically said, well, if he takes it, he's going to be fine. If he doesn't take it, he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Either way, we're going to be fine. So kind of leaning on the we're going to be okay is where I've tried to keep myself from being too stressed. But like one of the main things that I researched was like, okay, well, what's in the vaccine? Well,
Okay.
what part of what's in this vaccine is used in something else that we're currently using or used in another vaccine that we've already had?
Okay.
Um, so I was trying to like compare ingredients and um, look for, the study factor and how come it's just emergency approval only and how long does it take to get full approval and what's the process to get full approval and how come they just didn't give it full approval instead of just emergency use approval. So like, I've researched a whole lot of stuff, probably more stuff than what we have time to talk about tonight. um so all of that is just kind of like, well, geez, that's not helping me with, where I stand, like to say, yeah, let's go get vaccinated. Um, because like I'm reading the stuff and I'm like, ooh, okay, don't know about that. Oh, I feel some kind of way about that too. So that's kind of left me kind of in this gray area of, where like I wear my mask. Um, when I go to the grocery store, I still like avoid grocery stores if at all possible. If I don't have to go in a store, I'm just not going. I'd rather order it on
Right.
Amazon and keep living my life. So I'm avoiding, like too much close contact, but I'm also a school teacher. So everybody around me in the school got the vaccine when they started offering it to teachers. So my coworkers are all being vaccinated. And then we have these kids who, of course, are not. So that stands. And then the discussion of, well, in the fall here in Georgia, the governor is saying, we're not going to allow school systems to mandate the kids to wear masks. So the signing of that bill is it probably already took place, for all I know. So kind of thinking about all of that and thinking about what that looks like. I told one of my sisters, she likes to make t-shirts and stuff with her little Cricut machine. And I told her I wanted her to make me a shirt that says unvaccinated and I might have a light cough. So like people will wear their mask around. But I know that would be okay. So I'm like,
Wow.
I just want people to wear their mask when they're, around me. Like now, I know that there are times where like you go out to eat with people and you're kind of just around and you're going to take your mask off. But if you're doing that, I just feel like if you have a routine allergy cough or whatever, like tell me that before we start taking our mask off so I'm not looking at you funny. Because I am that person that if you cough in the grocery store, I'm going down another aisle. Like I'm just not coming down there with you. And so like if we're close enough to like be enjoying a meal together, I just need you to tell me, like, I have an allergy. Like I even look at my husband funny sometimes and I know he has allergies. And he might cough and I just be like, oh dude, like, I don't know, you might have to go sleep somewhere else. So I am kind of that person that's still like cautious, a little leery of people, but at the same time, I'll fully, So I'm a little kind of, just a little everywhere with it. Is what I would call it. But I've researched, I've done everything. So two of my sisters have been fully vaccinated. Well, one has been fully vaccinated. One has gotten her first dose, and then another person I know has also been fully. A couple of people actually, and their side effects were like just a sore arm, a slight headache, feeling, just a little sick on the first day after the second dose or whatever. So that kind of made me a little nervous too, because I feel like whatever somebody else experiences, I'm probably going to experience it times 20. And so I'm just kind of like, okay, you had a headache, my whole head is going to explode. So I don't want to
Oh
do
my
it.
goodness.
Like my dramatics, like all the dramatics come out when I start trying to think, and when I think on something too long, all of the dramatics come out. So you can only imagine that in
Yeah.
my mind, like I'm just kind of like, yeah, I would be the one. So even when we decided, that my son was going to get his first dose, I wouldn't let him go before school got out so that I could be with him when he goes. Because he's 18, he can go by himself. But like
Right.
I'm intentionally told them no, because they were like, oh, he can come when we called. They were like, oh, he can come next week. And I was like, no, I want it in June. So I'll be off of work so that I can go with him, so that I can keep my eyes on him and watch to see if, he's gonna have side effects or anything. And they were like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, so slow your roll. We'll come in June. Because they were trying to get him to come like in mid-May when we first found out. And I was like, oh no, we're gonna wait till June. So that's also my other, like, I guess, thing that I worry about with it is just him and just being able to see, how this goes with him. So, but yeah, all my dramatics come out when we start talking about COVID. So don't judge me. Just know that all the dramatics come out of my brain and my head, and that I'm just comfortable with y'all. So, like, just know.
Okay. Well, I was gonna ask Toya if she could share any of, the facts from that analytical side. So hopefully she'll be able to rejoin us. But up to then, so I'll read some of the things. I did a little bit of research or whatever, and I screenshot some things. Every time I think about getting it, because for a minute I was thinking about it, but then the way that it's being pushed makes me uncomfortable. Like I don't even like pushy people. So like I don't like, it just seems like it's a little much. I saw, so there's a hospital in Texas that is now facing a lawsuit. So 117 of their employees is suing the hospital because they're trying to force the people to get vaccinated. So they're suing like their employer for trying to force them to get vaccinated. And then I was doing some research and I found out that the EOC, which is, you know, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they're saying that now companies or your boss can force you to get the vaccine.
They
Like
can or cannot?
they can. It's not against the law for your job to force you to get the vaccine. Yes, they said it's not it's not any there's no legal downside to it, like for the company. Like so they can legally force you to take the vaccine or I guess, you know, not um not have a job, not work there. And so like it was making me really, really uncomfortable. I don't like the idea of being forced to do anything. Like, and that's just me personally, especially when it comes to things, you know, like my own body. I want to be able to make my own choices. Like, I had an interview. Well, I was scheduled to go on an interview, and you know, like I definitely need a job. I'm all in favor of it. And like the day before, the lady emailed me, and she was like, "Oh, we also need to know your intentions on getting the COVID vaccine," and I don't have any. Like like as of presently right now, I have no intentions of getting it. But she was like, "Oh well, we want you would have to give us a date um as to when you were gonna get the vaccine." So, you know, I just kindly told her, "Well, thank you for your time, but this ain't gonna work out." Because you know, like we haven't even there you go, Toya. Okay, so we haven't even, you know, gotten past the process, and already you trying to force me to get vaccinated. So, Toya, while you were gone, I was saying for me, I feel uncomfortable. Um, I feel uncomfortable with feeling like they're forcing it so much. You know, like some states are having lotteries, giving people, you know, thousands of dollars to get the shot. That just
Yeah.
seemed like a lot for me. I mean, I get the urge to be healthy and, you know, to try to protect, you know, your fellow citizens. I understand that. And, you know, I wear my mask. I like distance between people. Social distancing is excellent for me. That was like the best ever. When they
Me.
said, you know, you don't got to be hugging people, but unfortunately, people still run up and hug you. And like COVID, like, but they don't move. So you know,
In
and then
Ohio, they did a scholarship program to get parents to vaccinate their teenagers.
right,
And
like
they did like the kids would be put into a lottery for a full 4-year scholarship for any in-state school. And
yeah.
a 13-year-old won the 4-year scholarship to any college in Ohio.
That just seems like a lot. So Toya, can you share any of like the analytical facts, like anything that you've seen with your own eyes that you know is factual? Like, you know, that may ease some of our apprehensiveness.
Um, I mean, I could tell you stuff across the board. I mean, I definitely get the apprehension in people that have trust issues with the United States medical system, especially knowing how Black people have been treated by the medical system historically. Um, but for me, that distrust is removed when I know that the first people that they were giving it to are doctors. Black people are less than 3% of the nation's doctors. And so that means they were giving it to predominantly white males first. So that removed a lot of the distrust factor for me. And then kind of understanding that when we have been mistreated and misguided by the medical community, they're usually not giving us what everybody else is getting. We're getting a special dose, we're getting a test sample. And so that removed a lot of the distrust. And then in seeing the stats, one of the biggest ones that we had more recently or within the last 6 months would be for the Johnson & Johnson. So where they had 6 people catching blood clots and having adverse reactions that way. And I don't think it was 6 people that died, 6 people caught blood clots from it, and one of the 6 died, if I remember correctly. I take birth control. And so, or at least I used to take birth control. And in taking birth control, you have more than 400 people die a year from blood clot related deaths. That's one of the warnings that they give you for birth control. And in really just looking at those stats to say, 6 people out of 3.7 million, compared to the 400 people that die every year from birth control, stuff like that. Are the stats that we see and that we have to be cognizant of. I mean, I can go into more. I mean, there are all kinds of stats, and not just about the vaccines, but there are stats about people who haven't taken vaccines. And with the Black population, we know that we don't receive the same medical care. We don't have the same access to medical care. And so for a lot of times, Black people and Native Americans are the most negatively affected by this. We have the highest rate of deaths of COVID, but that's because of systematic racism and all of these other things, that we don't have the same access that some of our other peers, non-Black peers, do. And so when we see that we're dying at higher rates of COVID compared to, whites, Mexicans, the only people who are dying from this more than we are Native Americans. It's those types of stats that make me a proponent of it, that even though I said I wanted to wait until more studies were out about the vaccine, the risk of catching COVID and the negative impacts of COVID are much longer lasting for me. Which made it an easier choice. In terms of right now, so Johnson & Johnson, because it was a little bit delayed, and likely AstraZeneca, they will have more testing done than Pfizer or Moderna, just because they came out later. And not only did they come out later, they came out after some of the variants had already been established. And so the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca have much higher rates of efficacy, which means that it's safe because they've tested it against more of the variants of the disease. Not to say that Pfizer and Moderna aren't doing well. They have the highest efficacy values. But if you want to talk about testing and concern that way, some of the ones that are coming out later have done more testing just because they came out after the whole big pandemic started.
Okay. And so from, again, like I said, from the, the analytical side, what were some of the, I guess, the negative side effects that you've seen from the vaccine?
The most common is the sore arm. And so definitely seen a lot of that. Fatigue. And so there's some people who are just tired. I've heard plenty of people say that they sleep more. But again, with all of from the analytical side, in terms of the side effects, it's under 10% for all of the side effects that have been documented. So even while it sounds like, I had a sore arm, another lady on the call, she said she had a sore arm. So that seems super common. But when you compare it to the now over, 5 million plus people who have received the vaccine, and I think it's greater than that, we're still less than 10% the people who had a sore arm. The majority of people who don't have symptoms at all. And so I think it was somewhere it was under 1% for the people who had flu-like symptoms after the vaccine. It was less than 1% for the people who fainted or who had Bell's palsy. Again, the highest rating of more common reactions is fatigue and a sore arm. But there are still people who catch, like flu-like symptoms, chills, fever. There are some people who had nausea. There were some people who had the Bell's palsy of the face, which means pretty much a part of their face goes completely numb, almost like you had a stroke. But those all cleared up within a matter of hours. And the percentage, like I said, for many of those, it's less than 1% out of all of the millions of doses that have been given around the world now.
I just want to say I had Bell palsy before. It wasn't COVID related, like some years ago. The doctor couldn't even figure out what happened, like how I got it. But my face was like that for like a week. And it's so crazy because like only half of my face was like
Just
doing,
completely numb, gone.
yeah,
Yeah.
like numb. And it felt like it was heavy and it was like drooping, just like half of my face for like a whole week. So that is an
Crazy.
experience. Yeah, that's one that people should not have to go through because
Right. When I
that
heard
was
about that as a side effect, I was like, let me go ahead and cancel this appointment because that won't be happening. But again, the very next day we had another symposium with John Hopkins and the CDC and the National Health Organization. And when you saw some of the other stats, that there are still people who are immobilized, there's still people who don't have breathing function a year later. There's some people who still don't have their sense of smell. There are other, you establish scar tissue for the number of places that the virus is impacted. You just start hearing all of those things. And I was like, you know what? Maybe droopy face for a day, maybe I can deal with that. Versus, again, like I said, the long haul, they're calling it the long hauler syndrome, to where they're seeing longer and longer spurts of people having the negative side effects from COVID. Even if it's something as simple as losing your sense of smell, that affects how you taste, that affects a lot of different things. That you're literally losing one of your five senses from the virus. Those things that if I could avoid them, I would very much so like to avoid that.
absolutely. Tangela, did you want to add anything since you have had the vaccine? Would you give it to your children?
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know how I feel about that just yet. It took me a while to agree to give them the flu shot. So I don't know how I feel about them getting, because and again, I haven't done enough personal research to, in my opinion, for me to make an informed and intelligent decision on that. So right now it's a no, but it's not a never.
How,
Um, mhm.
how do you feel about the idea of them going back to school in August with the governor saying that we'll have a no mask mandate for school
Wait,
systems across the state?
it's a no mask. I thought it was a mandate saying that people aren't forced to wear masks. So they're saying
So
like the kids aren't allowed to wear masks?
the mandate is supposed to say that the kids are not required to. So the
Oh,
school
okay.
system can't say that they need to wear a mask, but that means that they could be in a classroom with 10 kids who have a mask on, 10 kids who have a mask off, and a
Right.
teacher who chooses not to be vaccinated or wear a mask.
Mm-hmm. My child will be wearing a mask.
Right.
Uh,
That's what I was gonna say.
so I'm not impacted negatively by that mandate. I'm starting to see that now. We went to a restaurant the other day, and they said we encourage you to wear your mask.
Right.
So I saw people in there, not wearing their mask and things. At first, it was kind of a little jarring, like why you don't have on a mask? But then, I know that things are starting to lift, but I think we will
Right.
continue to operate, with
Right.
the mask. They'll be going to school, with their personal, hand sanitizers and, hand wipes, and exercising their precautions. But I'm feeling more and more comfortable with them going back into the school next school year.
Right. I will say, well, of course, you guys all know because I did a whole party. Like, I am more comfortable in the sense of like being around other people, but I still wear my mask. Like, I haven't just abandoned all caution. Like I still think I'm gonna wear a mask for a while for the most part. Um, the vaccine, yeah, like I said, I don't know, that extra push is really the uncomfortable side. Anytime the government pushes something really hard, it scares me. I don't know. I just like like you were saying, Toya, the history, of just all of it is a little off-putting for me. But yeah, I definitely think that the mask, is something that people should do. Even if you're in a position where you're not comfortable yet getting the vaccine, continue, to wear your mask. Like we can't hide in the house forever. Like,
Yeah.
at some point we have to, start re-entering into society. But I think, trying to take every precaution, if you're not to the point where you want to get the vaccine, I would still say, keep washing your hands, keep wearing your mask, try to keep a little distance between people. Like sometimes people get too close. I'm like, ooh, sometimes you have to help people remember, like, I know we back outside, but let's not just jump in the deep end. Let's baby
Mhm.
walk this a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I hear, the analytical side, and I heard everything you said, Toya, and you're right. The numbers, it makes sense when you see it on paper or whatever. But I know for me, I'm going to wait until like it gets to a point where I have no choice. Like, I know they were saying for some sorts of travel, you're probably gonna have to get it. Like that's when I'll get it. When I get ready to go somewhere and I have to get the vaccine, I think that's when like I'll venture into letting them stick me. Right now, I'm just gonna, hold on to my mask and keep praying.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Trina, so I know you said you're kind of on the fence, but you have a daycare. So, um, how that does that push you toward getting it more? The fact that you do have, kids carry everything. Every cootie imaginable, kids, carry it from one place to the next.
Well, right now in New York, again, there's no mandate for me to get the vaccination. Number one. Secondly, where I'm still masking. The children do not have to wear masks, but I am still masking. And thirdly, I remained open throughout the pandemic. And the youngest child that I had was under 2, meaning he was near me, up on me all the
Right,
time, and I remained masked. I there's no way you can limit you can't do social distancing with children.
right.
But we were very vigilant, wash hands, hand sanitizer, did everything we needed to do. Um, so at this point, we're gonna continue doing what we've been doing. We stayed open. We had no instances of COVID in in my daycare. So none of the children and myself got it. So we're gonna continue what we're doing. And I haven't heard anything from my licensor or anything like that it's gonna be something that's mandated at this point.
Okay.
So
Taiwan said, I heard a discussion at McDonald's and 2 people were talking about they're not getting the vaccine because they didn't know what was in it. I'm like, you eat McDonald's processed food and you worried about a vaccine. The double Big Mac got to be worse than a vaccine. So, Taiwan, have you gotten the vaccine? I
Well,
don't
if he's
think
eating
you've.
McDonald's, I'm gonna go with yes. Because he said if you eat McDonald's, you can't be worried about the vaccine.
So, Toya, I'm assuming that your partner, your significant other, he got the vaccine as well.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he got it March or April. He got the second one.
Okay. So he
I had
got
a
it
quick
after.
question.
Go ahead.
I had a quick question. With regard to the analyticals, I know early on there was some question about people with food allergies
Right.
getting the vaccine. Was there any, in your, I guess, research or findings that there was any more adverse side effects with people who had food allergies?
Not from anything that I've seen. I know there was some concern because I want to say the flu vaccine has egg in it. And so there were a lot of concerns about, again, the ingredients, some of the adverse effects that other vaccines have had and experienced. Um, the technology behind this one is completely different than the flu vaccine, though. And so I haven't seen any specific studies on allergic reactions. That doesn't mean that they couldn't still be present, but that just means that the numbers are so small, it wouldn't trigger something for somebody to investigate, to say, should we be concerned about this? And so, like, an example with the 6 people having blood clots with Johnson and Johnson in states discontinued use of it until they could do studies to become more familiar with what was going on. And again, they went back and did their research. They took information in that 6 people had been impacted by it. But again, for a lot of these medicines, it's years of research, but it's years of numbers as well. And so the Johnson and Johnson was re-released because it was literally, I think, only 6 people out of, I think, at that point in time, it was either like 5.7 or 6.7 million doses had gone out. That is literally less than 100%. And I don't know if they've had any additional ones. We usually get our reports about once a month, and so I should probably be getting another report in at the end of next week. But there haven't been anything that has been mentioned, at least in significant portions, enough to raise alarms regarding food allergies.
Okay, so Anthony said, "Yeah, I hear you, but digesting food and putting something in my vagina is different." Oh, I guess that's in response to Taiwan and the McDonald's. Taiwan said, "We still have too much antibodies currently, but when they wear off, I'm getting it. After having COVID, I don't want to experience that again. I'm guessing he's saying my family is also getting it. I'm assuming." Because like there was a word missing. Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of off-putting too. Because if you've had COVID recently, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you get the vaccine, and I really didn't understand that part either.
So they make you wait because when you get the vaccine, or when you get COVID, your body naturally builds up antibodies towards it.
Mhm.
So when they originally rolled out the vaccine, they were only doing it in limited quantities because you have to realize the government is the one who's paying for all of it. So, since they're footing the bill, they wanted to kind of control the numbers until Biden really got in and opened the floodgates. But they tell you to wait because your body, if you catch COVID, your body is producing antibodies over a period of time to where you shouldn't be susceptible to catching it again. And so they tell you to essentially wait 90 days because that's the extent of how long the antibodies if you previously caught it. So that would allow someone else who's maybe much more high risk, who never caught COVID, who doesn't have the antibodies to get the vaccines first. And so that's what all of that is.
My son's doctor also told us that if he had gotten any other vaccines within a 2-week time frame of the COVID vaccine, that he would have to wait. So he couldn't, like they do right before college, the meningitis and all that kind of stuff. So they were like checking his records to make sure that he didn't, within the next 2 weeks and after 2 weeks after that, he wasn't scheduled for other vaccines in between time to make sure that the COVID vaccine takes its full effect in his body.
Right. So with some of our other vaccines, they react they cause inflammation in your body to cause your body to react to it to produce the antibodies. And so you run the risk if you're taking a vaccine that causes like a flare up, so your body can react to it. It's going to be so minor that we don't notice it. But if you take that with another vaccine, your other vaccine may stop that flare up from happening, which would create the antibodies. And so that's why they want you to space them out.
Right.
So you make sure that the vaccine has a single effect for that particular type of vaccine. And so like meningitis, those have the same technology behind it, very similar to the flu. So whereas this one is an mRNA vaccine, which means it triggers a reaction to something very minuscule, very similar to the virus. So your body automatically starts producing those antibodies again. And if you take it in conjunction with some other vaccines, they're still testing to determine, to make sure your other vaccine doesn't cancel out that reaction that you need your body to have, if that makes sense.
Okay, and so the vaccine is going to, it's like the flu vaccine almost, in that you'll have to have it yearly as well, or was that just,
So with
is
all
that
of the,
true?
they're saying that we may start needing a booster just to make sure that they're getting updates to combat the variants as well. And so there's very much so a likelihood that we have to start needing it once a year or more. But what they don't tell you, they do the same thing with the flu vaccine. They put
Right.
the flu card every year because there are multiple various strains of the flu, but they create the vaccine and give you a booster every year to target that specific strain. And I expect it to be very similar to COVID in the future. So for anyone who already gotten it, they'll have other opportunities for you to get other booster shots. And with kids, booster shots when they have to go back to school and stuff like that.
All right. So somebody from, like, that's YouTube, they said no, and he said the spike protein is causing autoimmune problems. Not sure what that is. I mean, this is not a traditional vaccine. Well, I mean, in that sense, I don't really think COVID was a traditional, not too many, for it to be a pandemic, that definitely means it wasn't a traditional sickness, like, so this is something, that
Very
definitely
different.
isn't traditional. So I would assume that the vaccine is not something that's going to be traditional either. But I could understand the apprehension. Do you know what the spike protein is, Toya?
Yeah, so when they talk about the spike protein, again, this one uses science technology where they replicate. Um, so they're not giving you the virus, but they've created replicated something that will give you one of the same. So they call it a spike protein. So if you look at the virus, it has all of these different spikes on it. That's just the way it looks under a microscope. And
Okay.
essentially, the science behind this vaccine has identified one of the unique spike proteins of the virus, and they've replicated it. So the easiest thing I could say is like you have like milk, and then you got like milk from concentrate, different versions of it. You even have stuff that's not actual milk. You have soy milk, you have almond milk, and essentially they took milk. If you compare milk to the vaccine or to the virus, they created a fake version of it that your body will react to, thinking it's a smaller subset of the virus, and that's called a spike protein. And then if you get that in your system, your body reacts to it and starts producing antibodies. But it's only a
Yeah.
specific protein, not the virus itself. So if you're like me, I have a dairy allergy, so I can't drink milk, but I can drink muscle milk because I have to drink like protein supplements. It has a milk protein in it, but not milk itself. So I won't still get sick and break out in hives and have all of the upset stomach and stuff. I can still drink it because it has a protein that's very similar to milk. It's the same thing with the vaccine. They used a protein that was found in the virus. It's not the virus itself. It's not going to give you the virus, but your body will react to it, causing you to produce the antibodies to protect yourself. RNA vaccine.
Wow. Okay, so Toya, I have to say, listen, you superseded my expectations here, because I had no idea that I had no idea what you actually did for a living. I just knew that you had the vaccine, and I'm like, she could talk about her experience, but you have superseded my expectations by far. because you've given us a lot of information, and it's actual firsthand information. So that makes it, for me anyway, way more credible than just people on TV talking to me.
Mhm.
So I thank you so much for sharing all your information and being willing to share your experience. Tangela, you as well, even though I'm still feeling some type of way that I just found out tonight that you've been sitting all vaccinated all this time. And I had no idea. Um, what is that? Oh Lord. But thank you guys so much for being willing to share. I know when it comes to like your health and different things, it can be a personal, a bit of a personal area for some. So I do understand maybe not, once you do something and make a decision, you don't always want to tell people because, then you got, oh my God, you got the vaccine. You gonna, like you said, turn into a zombie. Next week your arm gonna fall. You got to hear all this stuff, so I can understand. Just like this person in the comments, and I don't know how to block comments because my husband. Oh, there we go. Bam. All right. Uh, so thank you guys, for being willing to share, that personal information with us and being willing to talk about it. Because everything is, your health is personal and your decision has to be your own. By all means, guys, do your own research. As I said before, let me put this up here. The CDC, um, it's www.cdc.gov. You can go to the CDC website and find out even way more information. Well, I blocked him, so I don't know what he put up there. You can find way more information about the vaccine. I went to the site. It does list some of the things or the untruths that you heard. It gives you some actual factual information. So by all means, go to the CDC. We were just sharing our personal feelings on it and where we are right now. As we do every week, we try to share our personal thoughts with you guys. We don't want to advise or scare anybody off. This has to be a personal decision. So do your research and be comfortable with whatever you decide. But by all means, be safe. So, wear your mask, social distance, whatever precautions you think that will continue to keep your family safe, by all means, take those. So thank you guys for watching us. Thank you for joining in. We so appreciate you. And next week we will return. So until then, be safe and have a great night.